What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be going through a beginner's guide to Figma. So this is literally for beginners, so you don't know what the software is, you don't know how to use it. I'm just going to teach you how to kind of get started, get your first projects on the go, teach you some best practices. So this would be suitable for, obviously people that have never used it before, people that have used it but don't have a clue what's going on. Maybe you were in a print design job and now you want to move into a digital design job. Maybe you've just been made redundant like loads of people and you need to start getting some new skills. Figma is the place to be if you're a designer. So on the screen here you can see our little table of contents. So this is what we're going to be going through today. So Figma guide for beginners. Number one, what is Figma? It's a good question. It is a digital design software. Very similar to Sketch, if you know what Sketch is. Sketch was the industry standard for digital product design. Kind of neck and neck with Figma now. Each has their own benefits. I much prefer Figma. I think it's cleaner, much easier to use. One of the main selling points to Figma is that it has multiplayer, so more than one person can be in one document designing at the same time. So all of your files are hosted on the Figma servers rather than locally on your desktop, freeing up space on your computer and your hard drive, which is good. The downside to that is that perhaps a slow internet connection might slow your workflow down a little bit, but I've never really had that problem. It's a bit similar to Adobe XD as well, in my opinion much more powerful, although I believe XD has now released sort of a multiplayer type thing. I haven't tried it. Figma is brilliant when you're working on a client project because you can sort of do the design, you can invite your client into the document, they can view this whole document in the browser and you can decide whether they have edit access or view access. So if they've got view access they can't mess up any of your designs, but there's a great commenting system, so you can leave a comment on something and say, hey, which do you prefer, this layout or this layout, and then they can reply to you directly in Figma, saving you from having to export files, email them across, yada yada yada. You can work together in here at the same time. Another great benefit is working with a copywriter or a team of designers, so you can start doing the layout and a copywriter can just be following you behind and they can just come in and literally type out the text in your design as you go, which is really handy. So to get started, all you need to do is go to figma.com and let's talk about plans and pricing. So here's the pricing section on Figma's website. So as you can see, you can get a starter account for free. That gives you up to 2 editors and 3 projects. Now, I'm a professional freelance web designer. I sometimes design apps and stuff. Everything I do is in Figma and I'm on the free account. Okay. The only reason you would need to go onto a paid account is if you we'll kind of get into this later, but when you're saving styles and things like this to reuse on other projects, you can sort of, if you've got a paid plan, you can have lots of projects and you can share libraries and stuff more easily. By myself, I don't need that at all. I can just have as many documents as I want and I just keep all of my work for one client into one document and it works out fine. If you scroll down, you can see all of the benefits and choose a plan. So back into Figma, frames and pages, number 3 on the list. So you might be used to working in Illustrator or something and creating artboards. In Figma, these are called frames. And all you do to create a frame, so you can see this is a frame on my background, you're just going to press A, and this brings up your frames on the right hand side. And you can see they're split into phone, tablet, desktop, watch, etc. There's even handy social media presets, so Twitter post, Twitter header, and all this kind of stuff. Very handy. So say we're making a website, we're going to pick maybe desktop here, and it's just automatically going to pop in a new frame here for us. Lovely. You can just grab the name and you can move it around like this. You can zoom in and out like you usually would. Spoiler alert, we'll be making this in a moment. Hold down spacebar brings you up the tool, the hand tool, which is really handy to just move around. And hold Z and you can draw out a box to zoom in. Very handy. So that's creating a frame. You can click on this frame and you can press Command D to duplicate that frame as many times as you like. Select it, backspace to delete. You can also change the frame's dimensions up in the top right hand side. So this is currently set as a MacBook Pro screen size, but maybe you wanted to just design a hero section of a website or something and actually That's never going to fill the full screen because you've got things like the menu bar at the top and your dock at the bottom and things like that. So maybe you would want to design it something like that. Or you can just grab the frame and stretch it however you like. So let's just undo and get back to where we were. There we go. So that's frames. So inside this page, you can have as many frames as you want. If I zoom out, look how big this canvas is. Okay, you can put tons of stuff in here. Okay, so what are pages then? If this isn't a page, this isn't a page, this is a frame inside a page. So over on the left hand side, you can see we've got page 1. Let's just close the layers. If I toggle down on page 1, you can see I've got page 1, and I could rename this starter templates or something, for example. Then I could make another page, and this could be design system, etc. This could be email layouts. Another page you can have for web design layouts. So you can keep a whole project just within one Figma document and just split it up by pages rather than needing to pay for a bigger plan. Okay. You could also like copy and paste emojis to put in here, which is quite a neat way to organize your stuff. Right, and then you can just right click and delete these pages as you need to. So we'll just stick on our current one here. You can double click in there to rename, or in Figma, anything you want to rename, you can click on it and press Command and R, and that's going to allow you to rename. Apparently you can't do that on pages, I lied, that's just on layers and stuff, so you just double click and let's call this tutorial. Okay, that's frames and pages. So you've got a frame, you want to put some stuff on here. We need some shapes. So up here you've got your toolbar. It's kind of self-explanatory. Here's a square shape, so that's going to draw you out a rectangle. Easy. Let's see what else you've got in here. You've got a line, you've got an arrow, you've got an ellipse, polygon, star, and you've got place image. And you can see that they all have shortcuts attached to them there. Very helpful. So we could maybe draw out a frame like this. Lovely. Now we need to give it a color. Okay, so over on the right hand side, you can see here we've got its fill properties or its stroke, and you can see that stroke is currently grayed out, so there's no stroke. It just has a fill, and this is the Figma's default color. Right? You can click on this little square swatch here, and this brings up your color selection. So down here you can change it from hue, saturation, brightness to hex or RGB or anything that you like. So perhaps there's a hex and you want to paste in a color that you've got from your brand guidelines or something like that. So we can just paste that in, hit enter. Oh, there we go, and we've got my nice blue there. Okay, lovely. What if you don't want a fill color? What if you want a stroke? Well, we all know the shortcut Shift and X, and that just swaps fill to stroke. That works in Figma too. Now this has got a stroke. Stroke is currently set on the inside. It's 1 pixel. Let's make it 50. There you go. We want to change the color of that. We can just change the color. No problem. Easy, right? How do you get it to a gradient? Well, you click on this box again and you see at the top it says solid. Drop this down, you can change this to a linear gradient, radial, angular, or a diamond gradient, or you can pop an image in there. So if we're going to do a linear gradient, let's select that, and by default it goes vertically, and you can see here, so this one is set at 100% and then it finishes the same color at 0%. So we could change that percentage and maybe make it just go to 50, so it's a bit softer, or perhaps you want to change this color completely, so you can go like that, just change that color. Maybe you can change this color. Okay, so you just click on these. If you want to add in another color into the gradient, you just click in the middle. Here's another one. Maybe let's get a yellow involved just to make it really disgusting. There's your gradient. Okay, maybe you want to rotate that gradient. Okay, so click on that box, click back onto this linear that you've created here, and this will bring you up the gradient transform controls, and you can just move this fella over here, move this fella over here. Ta-da, we've made it possibly even worse. Okay, that's gradients. Maybe you want to put an image in here instead. A couple of ways to do this. We can click here in the fill, change it from linear gradient to image. It's going to put this lovely checker pattern in. We can just select on choose image here, and then we can choose one from our files. So let's have a look at this from Unsplash. Thanks, Josephine. We click on here, And by default, this is going to come in and it's going to be set to fill the space. So you can see here it says fill. So it's just going to completely fill whatever shape you're putting this in. And you can put this image and these gradients and these colors into any of those shapes that we showed you before. We also have some sort of toggles down here, so we can slide the saturation down if we want it in black and white, for example. So you can play with any of those. If you decided you didn't want this to fill and you wanted to sort of give it a different ratio inside, you can select this drop down and you can choose fit, so it's going to fit the entire image that you've got inside your frame, or perhaps crop. And now this is going to let you choose sort of two controls to cropping. So we can crop the frame that it's being cropped to, and we can change the image in the background. So if we wanted to only show this image up to about here, we can just drag that in, and then we can click this image behind and we'll get transform controls here, and we can, oh no, I've selected on the wrong thing. No, I've selected on the wrong thing again. This is embarrassing, isn't it? There we go. I don't particularly like doing that for that reason. There we go, and then we could just hit the cross to come out, and there we've got our image. Okay, that's images, color and images, very easy. So obviously the possibilities are endless. Next up, styles. So we brought in some color before, we've deleted that color. How do we get that color back? It's gone. So what we can do is we can save the colors as a style, and then we can reuse that style. Then if we change that original style somewhere, it's going to update in every instance of that color. So for example, this is always a good thing to do at the start of a project, is draw out a box, and you're going to add some color to it. So I'm going to copy my hex code, paste it in here, hit enter. There's my blue again. So we want to add this as a style. So you might think clicking the plus button will work. That's actually just going to add another layer of color over the top. So you see here, now we've got two. Now we've got a solid, and then we've got a linear gradient over the top, and we could change that gradient as we know how to do from before. This is good if you've got perhaps an image and then you want to put an overlay over the top. You can do it this way. If you want to remove any of those or toggle the visibility on or off, you can do that here. But I actually want to save this as a style, so I'm going to hit the 4 dots, and these 4 dots are shown everywhere, and they access the style. So you can have text styles, color styles, shadow styles, gradient styles, anything you like. So we're going to hit the style, color style, so we can search through ones we've already got, but we don't have any. So we can hit plus, and I'm going to call this blue. Now, top tip, if you can think about categorizing your colors and your styles, is going to help you down the line, and you can sort of put them in a folder of sorts by using a naming convention with a /. So I'm going to call this brand, so that's what I'm going to call the group. I'm going to put / blue, and you don't need to put spaces there. You can come up with any naming convention you like. Create style. Okay, I'm now going to hold Option to drag out another box. You can see here it's selected on brand blue. So I can edit the brand blue. So if I edit that style there, I'm going to be changing this for that style, not just this box. So if I change this here, it's going to change both of them. Okay, so that's editing the style. We don't want to do that. So we need to disconnect this one from its original style, and all you do is hover over and unlink it here. So you detach the style. This is now its own box, and I am going to get a different color, paste it in here. There's the green, so I'm going to hit the 4 dots, add a new one, brand / green. There we go. And let's get some neutral colors in here as well, so we'll detach that. Let's get a black. So there's my black. So rather than putting this in the group of brand, I'm going to do neutral / and I could call this black, or perhaps if I could do a scale of 1 to 10 if I've got a lot of different shades or something. For simplicity's sake, I'm just going to call it black. We'll also make one for white. That's a good practice, so let's detach that. Let's do white. We'll go neutral / white. Can you see here now we've got groups happening? So we've got colors in the brand group, we've got colors in our neutral group. Let's do another one, let's detach it, and we'll just add a sort of a soft grey into the mix. So just paste that in there, 4 dots, click the plus, neutral, and I'll call this soft grey. Lovely. So now if I were to draw a new shape, rather than selecting the fill here, I can select via the 4 dots, and I can choose to make it the brown blue, or perhaps I can choose the green or anything here. So if I were now to change this black, and you see when I'm not selected on anything, I can see these styles appearing here, so I can hit the slider toggle here to edit this black, and if I wanted to change the color of that black, you can see it's updating the instance of that color on the right. So that's styles in a nutshell. So we've got some color styles, so we could rename this by using Command R that we talked about before, and I'm just going to call this colors. And then perhaps I could resize this frame just to keep everything nice and neat. Lovely. So we've got colors, so let's do some text. So I'm going to duplicate this one, Command D. I'm going to rename it text. And let's ungroup this. Okay, so let's say this is a heading. Okay, it's currently set at 42, size 42, and I'm going to give it a line height of, let's say, 140%. Maybe let's go 130%, feels a bit nicer. So we can set this as a style. Okay, so obviously my text settings are here. This is quite self-explanatory. You guys know the drill. Let's just talk about this quickly. These 3 toggles here are quite important. So this one on the left is auto width, so it's just going to automatically go along. The next one is fixed width, so I can just say the shape and it's going to fill up the shape of that, and that will happen automatically if I just start to move this. You see it jumps onto this. Sorry, that's auto height, not fixed width. The final one is fixed width, so you can type in there, I want this box to be 300 pixels, for example. But we'll just leave it on this middle one for most cases, but you can play around with that and understand how it works. So say this is our heading, let's say this is our heading 1, so this is going to be our H1. So we've got the 4 dots, we know what to do here. We'll hit the plus, and now rather than a color style, we're creating a new text style. So I can group this if I want, so I could put it in a group of headings, and I'll do H1, or I can just call it H1 if I like. And now if I click off everything, I can see I've now got text styles starting. So I can copy this one, I can detach it, and let's say our H2 is going to be 36. So we'll call this is an H2. It's 36, and we can add it here, and we'll just call it H2, so on and so forth. So you can just build up your text styles like that. Then later down the line, if you're designing, you think all of your headers are too small or all of your headers are too big, you can simply come here and just change the size, and those changes will cascade through your entire document. So we've done text. Next up is auto layout. This, in my opinion, is one of the best things about Figma. It automatically lays out your page for you. It doesn't design it yourself, you know, you've still got to have the skills. But if you wanted to create something like this, for example, so this little card that I've made, this is mainly done with auto layout. And what auto layout does is you can group a few elements together, and then you can say, hey, put 16 pixels of padding between all of these, and it will automatically do it. Then if you add more text into them, they're going to just automatically expand and respond. It's amazing. So let's show you how we would make something like this with auto layout. So first let's draw a box for that image at the top. So we'll draw that out something like this, and let's just make it 200 pixels wide, and I've got rounded corners up here. So you can see here's our border radius. If I added 8 pixels there, it's going to apply it to all 4 sides. If I click this little icon, I can apply them individually. So I just want to put 8 at the top and leave the bottom as 0. I'm then going to change this to an image. I'm going to select that image that we had earlier from Josephine. Thanks again for your work. It looks great. Everyone loves a Swiss cheese plant. Okay. Actually, let's make this a bit wider. So we can just click on it and let's make it 250. That looks okay. Right, and then we've got the word plants, and that is, let's detach that, it's just automatically gone into an H2. Let's say that this is, I don't know, 12. That looks good. Obviously you can style this how you like and pick some colours. Let's pick from Figma's colours down here. There we go, we've got the word plants, and then we've got the title of the plant. So we could pick one of those text styles we set up earlier, but I just randomly chose those sizes, so it might be too big. See, that's obviously way too big for this design, so we'll just detach it. I'm just going to guess for now that that's 18. That looks good. Let's put it into black because it's more important. And then we want some Lorem Ipsum. So the next thing down on our list is components and plugins. So I'm going to show you some plugins now. And all you have to do is just go into Google and type in Figma plugins and have a look. There are a million community made and they're fantastic. I have one called Lorem Ipsum, which I'm sure you can guess what it does. So all I did there was went to plugins, chose it from the list, and it's just loading up. Apparently, maybe it's not. Please select some text layers. Here it is. So I'm going to draw out a text box. Okay, and currently my text size is 18, and this is going to be for this little paragraph, so I'm actually going to make this smaller. I'm going to do 14, and I'm going to give it 160% line height. Now I can choose various options here. I'm just going to generate one paragraph, or if I auto generate, it will fill the box that I've got here. And you can see that this is bold. This isn't quite right, is it? So let's just drop that to medium. Let's change the color like this, and actually I think this should be 140%. Looks a bit better. Okay, but it's not enough text, so we can just come back to plugins and we can just run the last plugin that we ran, which is very helpful. And maybe let's make this paragraph a bit bigger, and we can just click auto generate, and it's just automatically going to fill the space we have available. Now, because I changed the shape of this and the size of this text box by dragging it out, it's set it to be fixed size. So I can just change it back to auto height, and we'll see this space adjust at the bottom. Very helpful. Okay, so we've got some of this, and now we need a button, which will be our first auto layout test. So let's add a button. Let's just say button. Okay, all we need to do to apply auto layout is press the wonderful keyboard shortcut Shift and A. This has now put this into an auto layout frame. So we can see over here on the left, this is now called frame 2. So let's rename this button. And you'll see inside this group, so it's an auto layout group, there's just one layer and it's just the text. And what this has done is added some padding around that text. So over here we can see this auto layout is currently set to being horizontal direction. Doesn't matter at the moment because it's just one thing inside it. If there were more elements, there would be 10 pixels padding between them. And at the moment, oops, sorry, I just tabbed off that. At the moment, this here shows the padding around all sides. So if we put that up to 24, you can see that there's now loads of padding. Okay, let's just give it a background color like this. Actually, let's go with our black. And then you can see now we've got selection colors. We've got two things selected. One is true black and one is the black that we've made. So we can change this here just to white. So if you've selected loads of things, it will show you all of the colors you've selected, and then you can change them all en masse, which is really helpful, but it takes some getting used to. So let's make this button look more like a button. So rather than having equal space on each side, let's change that. So we can actually hit this one, alignment and padding, we click onto it and we can see how much padding is on each side. So maybe we want 8 pixels at the top and 16 at the sides. So we can just go around like that. And it's starting to look more like a button, or maybe we want to up this to 20 perhaps, like that. It looks nice. And then this little bit here, you won't see much at the moment, but this is where everything is sitting inside that frame. So if you've got a lot of things and you want them all to line up to the top left, you would click the top left one. I'm going to set this to center because I always want this to be in the center. Perhaps I want to give this some border radius. I can do that. Okay. So it's starting to feel a bit more like a card now. And what we can do is we can select all of these things by drawing a box around them, press Shift and A, and it's automatically lined everything up to the left, and it's put it in an auto layout group for us here. So we can see here this is now called frame 2. Over here we can see this is an auto layout set to vertical. If I change it to horizontal, everything goes horizontal. So back to vertical, and at the moment this is set to 12 pixels between everything. So for example, let's change that to 40, everything changes. 16 looks good to me. And let's see here, it's defaulted to go into the top left. We could move things to the top right or in the center or the bottom, or so on and so forth, but top left seems good for this purpose. But I don't really want these two to be so far apart from each other. So we're nesting auto layouts. So we've got one auto layout on the button, and we've got one on the whole group. So let's call this one card details. Now if we double click inside, we get into that group. So now this has expanded the layers panel on the left. So I've selected this, I'm going to hold shift and select the plants as well. Then I'm going to shift A to auto select these two, to auto layout these two. And at the moment there's 16 pixels of space between these, but perhaps we only want 4, or maybe we want 0, like that. And then that starts to look nice. So auto layout inside auto layout, but whilst we're going, it's a really good practice to name everything. So we've just created this. Rather than having frame 2, we can command R and call this category and title, for example. So we now know inside our card details we have a button, a description, so we could also rename this description like that. So we know we've got button, description, and category and title. Lovely. Now, can we add this padding around the outside of it so that it just looks great and is going to be responsive? Yes, we can. So let's add a fill. Let's pick our grey that we made earlier onto our auto layout. Looks rubbish because there's no padding, right? I want equal padding on all sides, so I can just use this one here and I can just type 24. Looks pretty good. Let's line it up. Okay. Doesn't line up. So you might think, oh, do I need to increase the padding on the left and the right? No, you don't. You can just drag this across like this. Okay, now you see how that text isn't responding. Okay, so let's select this text. Rather than double clicking into every group, you can hold command, and then that allows you to shoot through the layers in the group. So I'm going to hold command, click on this text and have a look. So it's got some resizing properties here. So at the moment it's set to fixed width. So the other options we've got are hug contents or fill container. And because we're stretching out that container, we probably want that text to fill the container. So let's hit fill container. Now we can grab our container, drag it out, and that text is just going to automatically fill it, respecting the 24 pixels of padding on each side. So now I can drag that back to there. One last thing to do would be to add the border radius to the bottom of this card. So we're going to hit this button and we're just going to do the two bottom ones now. There we go. So this is, top one is 250 pixels. Is this one 250? Yep. So let's select the two, just make sure they're definitely lined up using our alignment tools. And there we've got it, a nice card. You might be thinking, okay, well if you're adding this to basket, maybe there should be a price. So this is how we're going to add some stuff in. We could grab this text, we could duplicate it. Okay, see how it's now just expanded our auto layout down. It's kept that 16 pixels of padding between. So let's put in here, this looks like a nice plant, so we'll make it quite expensive. £250, yep, that sounds fair. Just style this a little bit. I think I'll make the price bold, lovely. But I think it's kind of a bit of a waste of space really. So what happens if we want to put the price and the add to basket on the same line? Okay, well if we tried to move this add to basket around, it doesn't really work how we want to. So we have to select these two elements that we've got, so the basket and the price. You guessed it, auto layout, apply it to that, change it to horizontal. Okay, something's gone wrong here, probably to do with this price. Let's see. So we'll command and click to see what's happening with this. See how it's pushing everything out to the side? That's because it's fixed width. And rather than fill container, we can hug the contents. So it's frame, that is containing it is going to be the size of the text inside. So we hug contents, and now it's correct. Okay, maybe we want these to line up horizontally. Probably makes sense. So we can come here, we knew this from earlier, and we can just put this into center rather than the top. We can also see that there's 16 pixels padding between, which I'm happy with. And now we've got another kind of card. So what we could do, what we should first do is rename that layer that we made down here. So let's do the price and button. Now what we can do is we can group this. So we're grouping the top of the card and the bottom of the card. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. I'm just going to duplicate this frame. Actually, no, let's not. Let's expand the size of the frame. Let's delete this original example. Whoops. So we delete that one. Let's expand this frame out. And let's say we now want to make a shop of 3 products. So I could click this, hold Option. Actually, let's rename this shop card. Sounds good. Make another one, press Command D, and it's just going to duplicate it nice and neatly, which is helpful. But this actually isn't the best way to do this, because if I go through and I change the image, change all the text, change all the prices, and then send it off to the client, and they say, oh, actually, I don't like the button being there, I want it to be underneath, or can we put the price at the top? You're then going to have to go through and change this on every single card. So this is where components come into play. So our second to last point, components. We want to create a component. We can do that here by pressing Create Component. It is now turned purple and it has 4 diamond icons. This is now our master component. If we now drag a copy of this one out, you can see that it's now just a stroked diamond. It doesn't have the 4 diamonds. This is an instance of the original component. So now, if I change anything on the original component, like if I change the neutral soft grey selection to green, it now updates all of the other components. Very helpful to know. Now this one being an instance of the component, I can make changes to this and it won't affect the original. So for example, I want to change this image, so I'm going to run another plugin. I'm going to run Unsplash. So we all know the website Unsplash. They've got a plugin for Figma. I can insert random, or I can pick from any of these categories, or I can search for something. So if I put plant, let's put another plant in there. Don't really like that one. Let's click it again and it'll put a different one in. Lovely. And then we could say, we could call this tree plant. And then this one's going to be a very cheap bargain price of £10. Okay, now if we still want to make changes to this, perhaps we want to remove the border radius here, we can. And you see it has updated this one, even though this has overrides applied to it. Okay, if you're making a couple of copies and you actually think that what you've done on your newest component is actually better, so perhaps you change this and you add a stroke to this one, for example. So let's grab this. No, wait, what am I talking about? I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here, actually. But you can see here you've got, these are some component options over here. You can click these 3 dots and you can detach this, so you can remove it from being part of this component and start something else, or you can push all the overrides that you've made to this to the main component. So if you do that, the original component is then updated. Okay, and there are a million ways to do this kind of stuff, so it's really good to go away, watch other people's tutorials, or read up on components and just kind of practice and see what you can come up with. But that's sort of a rough overview of components and how you can make a card or something like that relatively simply. So the last thing on the list was plugins, and I've shown you a couple here. The best thing to do is to just Google the top Figma plugins. There are loads of YouTube videos about it that are really helpful. Some I just can't live without. For example, let's show you this one, which is called, I mean, all of these are absolutely brilliant. For example, where is it? Which one is it? UI Faces, I think. No, it's Content Reel I want to show you. Okay, let's show you Content Reel. So imagine you've got some people So you've got some team, let's just write name here. You've got some team members, and it's not a very good design, but it looks like this. You've got the person's picture and their name here. First of all, rather than spending ages lining these up, let's just draw a box around them. Shift A for auto layout, and let's set it to be in the center. Let's just drag out a couple of copies. There we go. Okay, now let's grab our plugin. Let's go to Content Reel. This is a good one. Okay, we are going to select this, this, and this, and we're just going to add in avatars. So we'll just click on avatars. There they are. Let's grab name. I'm lagging a bit here, and let's do first last name. There we go. And this is just, you know, there are millions of these. They are so helpful. So just, you know, go to town, have fun. I mean, I hope this taught you something. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. It really does help. And I hope you all have a lovely day. That's me out. Good luck in Figma, guys.